Welcome to the It's a Classic podcast. I'm your host, Zion Lashua, and joining me today is my friend Shawn Choi. Shawn, say hello.
Hi.
Good. Okay.
This is very awkward.
I know. I told you it would be.
I just maybe it would help if I'm not looking at your face.
You can look somewhere else.
Yeah.
There's not a lot to look at in here,
Yeah.
but first things first is I wanted to ask you how much you know about Greek history, Athens, Sparta, conflict, things like that.
I do know that it was customary for men to have a little boy that they would not have sex with.
They would have sex with.
I thought they just olive oiled their legs and just went in their legs.
They did do that too.
But I feel like that's very it's dangerously close to like
to sex.
Yeah, and like they probably did it.
I think no, they did. I think they definitely did it.
Also, I was thinking about this question before, before we at my house today before I came over. Like, I know this sounds really stupid. Were the Greeks like white, or were they like?
No,
they were like brown, right? Because they were like working in the sun. And
yeah,
stuff.
they were not like that's like a big thing, kind of in modern, like classic scholar stuff, is to kind of talk about the plurality of mostly the Romans, but the Greeks too, because like for the Romans, I think I talked to you about this before, that the Romans kind of have been co-opted by like white nationalists and stuff. A lot of Roman iconography is like very white centric, when like the Roman Empire was not white. Like Roman Empire spread into Africa and spread into like Eastern Europe and things. So like it was a really not white. Like the Romans, the average Roman dude was not white. Like
they're probably like brown.
They're brown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, do you think that might have do you think the influencer of that was that like general public's first kind of foray into like Greek history and stuff was like live action movies portrayed by white people?
It could be. Another thing that people talk about is the whiteness of the statues, which is like something you might not like consider as whiteness, but like these statues were painted originally, and the paint's now like worn off, and so now they're just like kind of like almost like purest white, uncorrupt statue. You know, like if you see like a white statue, you're just like, wow, it's like so pure and like very classical in our mindset. But really, they were always painted with a lot of detail and like really like well painted. They didn't look stupid. They looked good.
Did Michelangelo's David's penis have paint on it?
No. So the Renaissance was looking at these ancient Greek and Roman sculptures.
Oh, that's just not from the same time.
Right.
I'm stupid.
Well, they were trying to pay homage to it.
Yeah.
But to them, when they saw the sculptures, they were also white. The paint had already flecked off. So like that's why the Renaissance sculptures based around kind of Greek and Roman stuff were white, because that's what they saw. So they emulated it.
And I'm glad we got this pop filter, because I said the phrase "painted penis," and I think that if we didn't have the thing that like blocked the noise, that would have been harsh.
So, and then following up on that, how much do you know about? I think I've mentioned him to you like in passing about Alcibiades.
I just know he was pretty.
Right.
That's it.
Okay. Cool. Well, that's good, because his story, let me tell you, it's a classic. And not any better the second time around?
No.
First off, the source that I'm using for this is Plutarch's Lives. So Plutarch was actually like a Roman dude kind of looking back at famous Greek people and using them kind of as allegory to everyday, like present day Romans in his time. So like he would compare people to each other.
So like the Roman Empire was pretty long, right? Like so Plutarch, how like far removed is he from these stories?
Like
would it be like equivalent of me like writing about MLK?
No, it's further than that.
Oh, okay.
It's like pretty far from the original stories, but they're the most kind of complete sources that we have. A lot of Greek history is based around the idea of Romans doing it for us, and then we just read their sources. Same deal with like Roman history.
Did Greeks like chronicle their own history?
Some did. So for instance, there is like the main source that Plutarch used is this dude named Thucydides, who cataloged specifically the war between the Persian Persian War, but also the war between Athens and Sparta. Like he cataloged that really well. So most of the info because Alcibiades was involved in that war, most of the info that he's getting about Alcibiades was from Thucydides. So, but just like note, this guy does kind of like to stretch the truth a little bit to create a narrative, because he's trying to compare these people with modern day figures. So like, if you're trying to make an allegory of like someone you really liked, you'd probably like want to skirt past
Yeah, definitely. That still happens today.
Exactly. So if you're comparing someone to someone from history, you don't mention the bad stuff. Like George Washington, right? Like you don't mention like
he had slaves.
You mention like he's like a great leader. And
he didn't chop down that cherry tree, dude.
That being said, there is still a bunch of bad stuff about Alcibiades. So I think he might. It depends. But anyway, so that's the source I'm using. That's what I did to mostly write this. So the first thing to note is that the tradition is, and this is like a really common tradition in Greek and Roman history, is to try to relate yourself to a famous figure in myth. So the tradition is that Alcibiades was a descendant of Ajax, who was a soldier in the Trojan War, basically.
So was he actually a descendant, or was like I
am a descendant? You can't prove I'm not.
It's like when white people are like, oh yeah, my lineage it trails back to Jamestown. Like,
exactly.
My great.
I was one of the original ones here.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that's in like it's like I'm trying to think of a modern day thing. We do it the same thing. We try to just connect our city or ourselves to famous figures in history because it's like makes us relevant.
Yeah.
The Greeks did that all the time. They'd be like, our city was founded by Theseus, or it was founded by Hercules, or whatever, or Heracles.
Of ship fame.
Of ship fame, yes. Okay. So the tradition is that he's the son of like a descendant of Ajax. The other thing that established right off the top, which is the one thing that you do know, is he's super hot. Like everyone like looked at this dude. They talk about how he's hot in all stages of his life. Like when he was youth, he was hot as a youthful.
That's a sexy baby.
Yeah, exactly. And then as he gets older, he blossoms, he flowers. So even his lisp. So he had a lisp. That's one thing. So even his lisp was sexy. The quote that I have here is, "It suited his voice well, and to have made his talk persuasive and full of charm." So they liked his lisp too, to the point where. So he had children later in life, and I read a bit, I didn't even write this down, but he read a bit where his sons tried to emulate his lisp, because they didn't have a lisp, but they tried to have one because they're like, oh, then it'll sound like dad, and if people like him. So the other things about him is he's like super full of himself. He loved to like challenge other people and like come out on top. So I have some like boyhood stories that kind of like establish that. So when he was about to lose in a wrestling match, he bit down on his opponent's arm and like wouldn't let go. He just like latched on there. And which allowed for like their grip to be broken on him.
Is that legal?
No.
Okay.
His opponent said, "You bite like a woman," and he responded like, "No, like a lion." So he's just like, he's super cocky, which I love. Another one is he was playing Knucklebones, which is like a dice game, right? And he was gonna lose, so he like accidentally threw his dice in the path of a passing like carriage, and people didn't want to go check what it looked like. So then he gets in front of the carriage and he just lies down on the ground. He's like, "You must run me over, because we have to get to the dice." And the judge was like, no, it's fine. Please do not go and look at your dice. It's okay. Like he was willing to lie him. So he lay down in front of the carriage. He's like, "I will make sure that I can get my dice, my friends. Don't worry." So he dove in front of the carriage to like make the carriage person stop because they weren't stopping for his dice. And they're like, "No, dude, it's okay. You don't have to kill yourself for your dice." And he's like, "Oh, you guys are so kind to me."
Dang. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. The other thing I thought was pretty funny. So he refused to learn how to play the flute. Like learning the flute was like a pretty common like Grecian thing to do. Like if you were like a good citizen, you learned to play an instrument, you learn all these skills, right? He refused to play the flute because he argued it disfigured a gentleman's form. Like it made him look ugly while he played it because it puffed out his cheeks. He said, "Leave the flute to the sons of Thebes, for they have no idea of conversation, because the flute occupies your mouth while you're playing, so you can't like talk and play."
Right.
So that was like a dig at Thebes, which is like pretty common in Athens. Athens like hated Thebes, which is like another city state.
It's kind of like when like some random college in like Omaha really hates some random college in Kentucky. Like they just really hate each other, and you're like, okay.
It's like that, except if one of the colleges was like Duke University and the other one was like a community college. Like no dig at Thebes, but Athens is like was like my personal favorite, so I like it a little bit more. He also said that like we Athenians have Athena as our foundress and Apollo as our patron. So Athena. So he said, one of whom threw away the flute in disgust, while the other stripped the skin off of the one who played it. So Athena, like, she was playing the flute, and then the other gods and goddesses made fun of her because her cheeks puffed out. They're like, that looks stupid. So then she threw it away. Apollo, this satyr named, I think I wrote it down. Yeah, Marsyas, challenged Apollo to a flute duel. And Apollo was like, "Oh, you should not have done that."
Oh man, you don't
because
know
so
what you want
the way the contest worked is like you had to basically do what your it's like horse, right? If they make a shot, you have to do that same shot to like match with them.
And then one up them.
Yes.
Okay.
So like going back and forth for a while, and Apollo just like floats in the air and turns upside down and plays the flute. And then he's like, "Do that." And the satyr's like, "I can't." It's like, "Well, you lose then." And then he flayed the satyr. Like he peeled his skin off. Yeah. It's not good.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Do you think if the satyr won, he would have flayed Apollo?
No. I think
that's a little bit.
I don't think Apollo would have lost. You know what I mean? Like Apollo wasn't about to let himself lose like ever.
What if the satyr like used his horn
to like play?
Yeah.
Probably like shapeshift into a satyr or something. Like the gods.
Can the gods shapeshift?
The Zeus.
I know that Zeus can turn into a goose.
He turns into a lot of things.
Does he turn into a goose?
He turns into an eagle. I think a goose too. Probably.
I think he turned into a goose and had sex with a woman.
Oh yeah. That sounds like Zeus. That's my boy.
Up to those classic
He's a
Zeus.
rapscallion.
Yeah, little guy.
So the flute was like a common instrument to learn, right? But because Alcibiades hated the flute so much, he like made it fall out of fashion. Like no one wanted to learn the flute anymore because they're like, Alcibiades doesn't want to learn it, so I don't want to learn it either. So he like single-handedly changed the curriculum of like what you should learn.
Oh my god.
So they just learned like the lute instead of the flute or whatever. So basically everyone was like jealous of him too because he was so popular. So they spread rumors about him. One of which was about how he killed one of his instructors at a wrestling school, which like is like kind of an insult, but also just shows how good he is at wrestling. Yeah. He like was able to like pin his instructor and they died. So he was constantly surrounded because he's so hot by lovers and suitors and people who wanted to like be with him because he's so good looking. But the only one he cared about was Socrates. So Socrates was like into Alcibiades. They were like a couple. Kind of.
This might just be extreme stereotyping. Okay. But when you mentioned that he had a lisp, my first thought was that he was gay.
Well, like everyone was gay.
Yeah.
It's like you mentioned the kind of pederasty, which is the name for the process that you kind of have a relationship with like a younger kid. The mentality, which is a super sexist mentality, was that like
women are inferior.
Yes,
so having sex with them is having sex with men is the manliest thing you can do.
It's like male minds are so advanced that two men can have a relationship that is like so beyond what can happen between a man and a woman because women are so lower down in intelligence. So like you'd like have sex with your wife to have kids. You'd have sex with your wife to have sons, and then like you'd have sex with dudes for like pure
carnal
mental. It's like
carnal spiritual.
Yes, which is like So that's kind of the mentality. So like it's not like. I think it's tough to kind of like look back and put gay as like a label on people because it wasn't really. Yeah. It was like that was the norm.
Did the implementation of Christianity kind of warp society's view of homosexuality?
I'm probably going to get into it like in a later episode about like the introduction of Christianity into the Roman world because it like skews a lot of stuff. Though Rome itself was pretty different from the Greeks as well, but they did have kind of like same-sex relationships in Rome, and it wasn't like necessarily frowned upon in certain sects. But then. Christianity started to kind of brand it as sinful.
Like, so Christianity is kind of just like, because like for me, I always thought that homosexuality was like stigmatized in like all civilizations, because like you kind of just always stigmatize like aberrant behavior, right? And so like,
but then what happens if that behavior isn't aberrant, right? Then it isn't,
So I just kind of assumed like all civilizations were like, no, gay's not right because so few people are gay, but like that's also like everyone talks about nowadays how like everyone's on a spectrum, right? And I think that's like.
I think it's kind of where the Greeks were at. They were
So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, the Christianity is a whole can of worms that's like crazy. Like I took a Fall of Rome class, and a big chunk of it is like what Christianity did to the Roman world, and it's kind of like the first dude. He was like this English dude, the first dude who researched like the fall of Rome, which is like an obsession with people. People love talking about how Rome fell, and they love nowadays comparing America to Rome, right?
All the immigrants and
this first dude, his main culprit that he blamed was Christianity. He was like, it sucked out the Roman vitality, and so then
because it's not their identity.
Yeah, and so
well, I know this is really off topic to what we're talking about, but I just want to ask, do you think that the fall? I know because again, I know this is very contentious. Do you think the fall of Rome was just because it was too big? Because when I think about the fall of like really big civilizations, I'm always just like,
how did they manage that?
They didn't even have like phones. How do you like manage that?
Yeah. I think that like one of the biggest reasons I think that Rome fell is their lack of union with the like the Gothic people. So the Gothic people fled from the what are they called? Basically like
the Huns?
So they fled from the Huns, but it wasn't just the Huns, it was like a couple other groups. But basically like proto-Mongols. Like they became the Mongols later. Like so these are like nomadic groups from the steppe peoples.
Like the Mayarans as well.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember the name for them. Anyway, but so they drove the Visigoths westwards, right? So then they fled into Rome for like safety. And I don't remember the specific emperor, but one emperor was like, okay, so what we'll do is we'll partner with you. You will live along the edges of our empire so that
you're a meat shield.
A little bit, but you will still receive Roman protection and things like that. So they got a lot of, they were down. The Goths were down with this deal. Later, an emperor was like, these Goths are like coming in and destroying.
Just listening to My Chemical Romance.
Oh my God. They're just like hating life. They want to die.
They have dyed hair. That's unacceptable.
They were so excited to be our meat shield. But they then like there's a couple different Gothic tribes who like were trying to like ask for help because they were being attacked. And then At one point, there was an emperor who was just like, like, let them die, like just like would cut them off. So then now the Romans had made an enemy of not only the invading Huns, but also all these Gothic people.
Also
who were,
the people
who were
that
like,
were surrounding
who were
their
in their
entire
empire.
Yeah.
So like, I think that's a big misstep.
So
like,
story
anyway.
of the day, kids. This is not a political podcast, but immigrants. Don't demonize
They're not
them.
your scapegoat.
Yeah, don't vilify them. Otherwise, they'll just partner with the Huns.
They'll turn on you.
You know those Mexicans down at the border? They're gonna partner with the Huns and invade us.
They're gonna partner with the Southern Huns. Anyway, Alcibiades. Right. So everyone loved him. Socrates was into him. Socrates was the only one that he cared about. Like, he cared about Socrates' opinion because Socrates. So everyone else would like flatter him, right? Be like, "Oh my God, Alcibiades, you're the best at this. You're so good at this. Whatever." Socrates was the only one to like call him out. Be like, "Dude, no, you're not good at this."
Yeah, you're just pretty.
Yeah. So, and he liked that. So he liked being called out.
Oh, he liked the. It's like when you wrestle or like no
What?
no not the right word. It's like when you have like a back and forth with like someone.
Banter. Yeah.
Like
he likes that.
Yeah.
So Socrates was like honest and like burst his pride every once in a while. This was made obvious. This is the note I put down by one of his suitors named Antius, who invited Alcibiades over to drink. Right, and Alcibiades was like, "No, I don't want to come over and drink." But then later that night, Alcibiades got drunk, showed up at that dude's house, and then stole half his silverware. Like he just
wait.
He came
steal or he just came in and took.
He came in with his group of like slaves and people, and was like, "All right, take half the silverware,
take all the cups."
And then like later they talked to Antius about it, and he's like, "You know what? He's so great. He only took half my stuff. He could have taken all of it, but he didn't. He took half.
He took only one chopstick from every pair.
Yeah.
So I can still use the chopsticks with the other ones."
So that's kind of like showing a bit how like these people like never stood up to him, right? They were always like, "Oh man," they kowtowed to him all the time. Honestly, like everyone in Athens is a simp for Alcibiades.
Okay.
So then the relationship with Socrates is kind of emphasized. Plutarch talks about the Potidæan campaign, which is like a war that happened later in his life, but it talks about like the partnership between Alcibiades and Socrates. So
sorry, before you go on, I just had a question based on something you said earlier. You said that guy that he stole his plates from was a suitor, right?
Yeah, he loved Alcibiades.
So like, was monogamy really like
not necessarily with dudes?
Well,
like you had a wife.
I know that you had like one wife.
Well,
like,
you had mistresses too, but like
but okay.
Yeah,
but like,
I mean,
he was too hot.
You just
how could you not?
Yeah,
have
exactly.
Yeah. But like, was there this idea of like a monogamous kind of like he kind of was like in with like Socrates or whatever?
There was a bit of that, but it wasn't like you couldn't still try.
So Socrates was like his main squeeze.
Yes, his main squeeze for sure.
Okay.
Socrates was best girl, and then like the rest are all just like
the childhood friend,
like Marie or whatever. Yeah.
That's a
deep cut.
It's a very
niche
intersection of like weeaboos and history,
which is probably not going to happen.
This is not going to help your podcast.
So Alcibiades fought side by side with Socrates in this campaign, but was wounded and fell. Socrates then like stood over him and defended him from like all the people coming to like take down this dude who fell. However, later when it came to honors being distributed, Socrates claimed that it was Alcibiades who saved him, hoping to elevate the status of his friend and lover. So like accomplishing military feats is like great for your political career.
Yeah.
So Socrates has no interest in politics, right? He doesn't care. He just does his thing.
He just thinks.
So it wouldn't matter to him to get a military honor. So he's like, well, I'll just let Alcibiades have it. So like Socrates, as much as honest as he was, still kind of a simp. Then but he returned the favor later in the Battle of Delium, which was in that same campaign. Alcibiades guarded Socrates' retreat while he was on horseback. So he saw Socrates in like his like platoon or whatever retreating. So then Alcibiades like breaks away from his like cavalry. So he's on a horse. So he comes and he guards them from like attacks. So like, it was a bit of a just like back and forth relationship. So then we get into like his early public life. So like before you reach a certain age, you don't really do anything, right? You just kind of exist. That stuff was in the future.
Oh, okay.
Like Plutarch kind of just brings it up to kind of show the level of like respect that the two had for each other.
I thought young boys in Greece would like join the military and like train.
Not as much in Athens.
Okay.
That was a big Spartan thing though.
Oh, is it because they just kind of like used the territories that they had obtained? Like, all right, you are soldiers. Like,
yeah.
We're chilling here.
Yeah. Athens, like they had a military for sure, but it was a lot of Navy based stuff. Athens was a big naval power. And then
how do you fight without cannons on the sea? Do you just board another ship and fight them?
Yeah, I mean there was also like
Greek fire.
Greek fire is Byzantine. It's later, but like they did have that.
I would
not now.
Maybe they were just so rich they could just ram ships with ships.
They would kind of like they would capture ships. So yeah, they would kind of like take them over, and then they would be prisoners of war basically.
like would they take like like fishing boats, or would they just be?
They had like military, or what do you mean?
Well, just like they just like went into other people's waters and be like, all right, this is our ocean now.
I mean, other like city-states did also have naval powers, but like Athens was like the predominant one, so they would just like take them over, or like, yeah, mostly. So in his early kind of public life, I like this story. So there's a respected like nobleman in Athens named Hipponicus, right? He was like a pretty rich dude, and everyone kind of liked him. Alcibiades like was put up by his friends like as a prank to go prank him, right? To go prank Hipponicus. And so Alcibiades walks up to him in like a public square and just like punches him. Like that's his prank.
Pranked.
Yeah, he just like pranked him by punching him. And then everyone like heard about it, and Alcibiades was worried that this would like ruin his whole reputation. So he was like, this prank's gonna like take me down.
No, he put on YouTube, gone sexual in the hood.
Like he needs this drama. But so then he goes to Hipponicus' house and like begs for forgiveness. He's like, please forgive me, I'm sorry. I don't want this to like ruin my street cred. So not only did Hipponicus forgive him, but also was like, do you want to marry my daughter? And Alcibiades was like, yes. So yeah, it worked out for him, I guess. His wife's name was Hipparete, and she was pretty irritated with the habits of her husband because he was super into like debaucheries. So like he would like hire a bunch of prostitutes, and especially foreign like courtesans and like prostitutes, which is like pretty frowned upon because like Athenians have a pretty like high opinion of themselves.
Puritan.
Yeah, they're just like, that's a foreigner, they don't necessarily belong here. That like mentality was pretty dominant even before Alcibiades' time. Like the whole thing with Pericles was like a really powerful general in Athens, and he married like a foreigner, and everyone was like, oh my god.
I have a question. So like, I know this was very prevalent during like the Middle Ages. Did like syphilis, did like STDs exist?
I think they existed. I don't actually know.
Where do STDs like come from? Like, because humans don't just start like
it didn't come out of nowhere.
Did someone get it from like a monkey or something, and then it just spread from there?
I don't know.
Isn't that where like AIDS came from?
I think so, dude.
Eating monkey brain.
I don't know the specifics enough about
That's
STDs
true.
to talk about.
This is not the.
Not an
this
STD
is not
podcast.
The. Yeah, you are a classics major.
Yeah, that's all I know. But I don't know about STDs in the ancient world. I could see that being a paper for sure. So writing about that. Because often they're kind of not very specific about diseases. They're just like, he took ill. They don't like go into detail necessarily, but you can like kind of infer kind of what they might have had. So she actually left him and went to go like his wife, Hipparete. So she left and went to live with her brother, which is like a big deal because Athenian women like were pretty sequestered to the household. Yeah. And so eventually Hipparete went to go to the courthouse to like file for divorce, which is a thing you have to do very publicly. Which the point of this exercise of having the wife have to come to the courthouse and apply for divorce is to allow the husband to come and claim her. So like even if like she wants to get divorced, if the husband shows up, they're not divorced. Oh. If the husband does not show up, then they're divorced.
Okay.
Alcibiades showed up. So he went and he grabbed her and like carried her back to his house. This was like bad for his rep, right? Because he's like very concerned about like how he appears, because that's like your reputation and how you appear is like big for like politics, and he wanted to be a big political figure. But not, unfortunately, she died like not long after that.
Oh, okay.
So it was pretty bummer of a life for Hipparete.
With that divorce law, do you think there was any circumstances where like an Athenian woman wanted to divorce her husband and just set up like this comic like ruse of like interruptions so he couldn't get to the courthouse in time?
Right, like she set up, like she got a bunch of people in on it to be like,
like someone's like moving a piano across the street.
There's construction on here, you gotta take a detour.
You gotta take the back road, man.
You gotta take the long way around, and then he gets the long way around. It's like,
I'm sorry, buddy, major horse and buggy accident.
Sorry, I dropped this barrel of fish, now there's fish everywhere. I'm gonna say yes. Yeah. I hope so. So then there's a story about his dog, which I liked. So he had a large dog, a large and handsome dog is how it was described.
What a weird description.
He bought this for, so this is what I get to, so he bought this for 70 minyae, which I tried to find exactly the value for this, but
how much minyae does an apple cost?
It's a lot of money. I don't know. 100 drachma was 1 mina, and minyae is the plural of mina. And a daily wage for a soldier was like 1 drachma.
I think, how many, do you think a daily wage of a soldier would allow them to eat an apple?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, so like that's like 700 apples. 7,000?
100 drachma for 1 mina, and you need 70.
So 7,000 apples.
So it was a very expensive dog. Yeah. He also cut its tail off.
Oh
man.
Like,
well, you know, like we did that to a
little stub.
Yeah, a little stub. Yeah. And everyone hated that he did this.
That dog's too handsome.
How dare you defile him? He said, "Great. Like if everyone is talking about this, they won't focus on any of the worst things that I've done." So if they're talking about how I cut my dog's tail off, they're not going to talk about how I'm like sleeping with a bunch of like foreign courtesans, which like I think is a pretty good plan. all this he did, like, while basically being kind of, like, not in the main public sphere yet. Like, this was, like, he's still, like, a kind of a new...
He was just, like, a pretty boy on the block.
Yeah, exactly. He's just a new kid on the block. So then his first public appearance, it happened, like, by chance. He was walking by, like a public subscription where, like, there was, like, a big meeting of people, and he just kind of waltzed in and just started talking. He started a speech, because he's, like, this is something we'll learn about him. He's very good at talking. He's a very good, like, rhetorician. He's very good. He had very good rhetoric.
Okay.
He started giving a speech, but he forgot he had a quail in his pocket.
Like a bird?
Like a bird.
Okay.
And, like, as he was gesturing in his speech, the quail flew out.
And
I was like, wow. Yeah, and I was like, how do you forget you have a quail in your pocket?
Why did he have a quail in his pocket?
There's no detail about that. he forgot.
No, man, he planned that. There's
right?
no way.
You think so?
Like, this is a stretch. You were talking about the author stretch.
Yeah.
He stretched. He
You
planned
think
that.
he planned that to, like,
He planned that. That bird
for
was
the
planned.
for the spectacle of the thing. Yeah. He would always, like, find the perfect way to say things during his speeches, right? So, like, I could see him totally making sure that he, like, released the quail right at the right moment.
We'll fly into the future.
Oh my god. So he would sometimes even, like, do a thing which I think is, like, pretty interesting. A lot of people don't do this today because a lot of people write their speeches in advance. But he would stop mid-speech to think of the perfect way to phrase what he was going to say next.
Like, pretend like he was gonna.
I think that probably he could do it for effect, but I think also when he wanted to get a point across and he didn't exactly know how to say it, because you didn't write your speeches beforehand. It was very kind of off the cuff.
Right. That was kind of like the artistry behind it.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd take a lot of classes in, like, rhetoric to be able to kind of to improvise.
That's why, like, I always kind of imagined Athenian politics as, like, theater.
It is pretty theatrical, yeah. Like, we'll get into that for sure. So he would sometimes stop mid-speech to, like, conjure the perfect phrase that would come next, which I think is, like, pretty interesting.
He is the inventor of the pause for effect.
Yeah, he would pause for, like, massive effect.
Yeah.
But he also released birds, so, like, I think he was pretty good at having effect in his speeches. He also bred horses. It's like a hobby that he had.
Okay. Were they beautiful horses?
They were really good and very fast. So he entered them into the Olympics. He would breed them like racehorses for, like, for the chariot races. So he was, like, the only dude to ever do this, where he entered, like, 7 chariots, right, with all, like, pulled by his horses, and he won first, second, and fourth. And according to other sources, he may have also won third. So, like, his horses were, like, super good. But so they were so good that, like, all the other city-states would, like, want to, like, shower him with, like, praise and love. Like, even if they weren't representing them, they were like, oh, you should come hang out with us, like, in our tent. We set up a feast for you.
In order to get a horse, or
just because he was super, he was hot and he bred really good horses. So they just wanted him to hang out with him. Like, there was some drama though. Once
on his Tinder profile, he just has a picture and is like, and he has.
You swipe and it's just him with his big dog, and then it's him with his horse. There was drama though, because there was one guy named Diomedes who found out that Argos, like one of the city-states, had, like, a really good racing chariot for sale, and he convinced Alcibiades to buy it. So that he could race it, so that Diomedes could race it. But then Alcibiades bought it and then raced it himself. And so then he told Diomedes to be like, what are you going to do about it? He literally, like, went up to him and be like, do what you will about this. Which he didn't do anything. Because, like, what could he supposed to do? This dude's super hot and has the best horses. Oh, this is a note I wrote down. Often, like, slaves are the one driving the chariots themselves, but the ownership of the chariot and horses was what you, like, won for.
So the credit goes to the
dude who owns the, like, horses and chariot.
It's like when you watch, like, NASCAR and like,
sure.
You know what? Cut this.
I think
this is not a good out.
I don't think. I think the drivers still get credit in but for instance, like, the jockey in modern day horse racing, they didn't breed that horse, so the horse breeder doesn't get all the credit, but they're important figures in the horse racing world.
Were the jockeys in Athens also small people?
You probably want them to be. I mean, they're in a chariot. So
yeah, that's true. I think you would want a
be.
big boy in a chariot, right?
Because then the horse is heavier for the horses.
Well, then, because he looks cool. He's like maybe, a big buff boy.
Yeah. Maybe.
Okay.
I'm not sure. So then he had a rise to power, right? Because so he debuted, everyone loved him, and now he was, like, just on the up and up. He did have a couple rivals, though. One dude was named Phaeax, I think. Phaeax.
Okay.
He was young, came from a distinguished family, but he wasn't as good of a speaker. The other, we're not going to hear much about him, by the way. The other dude, his name was Nicias. And he was an older dude. Like, he was older, and he had a really good reputation because he was already a general. Like, so he was already had a good rep. And Alcibiades hated that Nicias was admired by the citizens of Athens. Like, everyone admired this dude. Nicias actually has a section in Plutarch's Lives as well. So he's, like, a big figure. And many attributed the temporary peace between Athens and Sparta to Nicias. So like Athens and Sparta had some tension, but Nicias like smoothed it over. So Alcibiades started looking for a way to break the treaty so that they could go to war again to make Nicias look bad. So his first plan, Sparta gave Athens like back a fort of theirs called the Panactum, right? Like they basically said, okay, we won this from you, but you can have it back. The walls were broken, so it was useless. Like, what's the point of having a fort if the walls are just broken in half, right? Alcibiades took advantage of this, and he was like, "This thing's worthless. Look at like Nicias got us back a broken."
He made people angry. About
he wanted to get everybody really mad at Nicias for that. And he says that it's Nicias' fault for Sparta thinking they can treat us this way because like he made us look soft.
Yeah.
He made a bunch of other accusations too that Nicias was too friendly with the Spartans, things like that, right? Because he in the past had allowed large amounts of Spartans to retreat in safety from battles, like not pursuing them. And apparently he discouraged alliances that did not favor Sparta. And this plan like might have worked. It did not. Like Alcibiades' first plan, it might have worked if not for the serendipitous timing of a Spartan negotiating party that just happened to show up and saying that they had full authority to reorganize the treaty so that everyone could be happy with it. So they just showed up and said like, we love Nicias so much, we decided to come and just like open up all levels of negotiation. And Alcibiades, like I imagine like, Tim's just like
he's on the street on a soapbox and then like he's getting these people riled up and then this dude just walks in like, hey,
actually, we can reformat the whole treaty, and he's
we'll fix the fort.
And he just does that thing in cartoons where his finger just like he's like he had the finger up for him, so it's just like it just like slumps.
It like deflates.
Yeah, he's totally deflated. But he had a backup plan.
Oh man.
So before that, the Spartan like envoy could meet with the assembly. Alcibiades met up with them like not one-on-one, but it was just him and them. And so he said, okay, if you say that you have full authority to alter the conditions of the treaty, the assembly is going to like take full advantage of you, right? You're going to get screwed over like as much as possible.
And this guy was conniving.
So you should what you should say is that what we meant was that we'd like to have full control of the negotiations, but we don't. But say that you do not possess that full authority.
Oh, he's like telling player cards like close to your chest.
Close to your, exactly. This way you can look like that the plan, you can make sure that basically whatever Athens pitches, you can be like, I can't fully accept that. I got to go talk to my boss. So then you'd go back and you'd talk to them and so you have, basically you're just saying that like, if you hold back a little bit, you'll have more to do, which is not like bad advice necessarily, but the next day they met with the assembly. And so then they're talking about him. And then Alcibiades takes the stand, right? Takes like and he asks the delegation, he's like, so what authority do you have to like negotiate, right? Full authority? And they're like, actually, we don't quite have full authority.
No, we're not dealing with these jabronis.
And then he just goes off on them. He's like, how dare they show up here and lie to us and say that they had full authority when they do not. Nicias was then put to shame for saying that he was going to negotiate with them.
Oh my God.
So success. Like Alcibiades, like
he's such a little,
dude,
he's a little devil.
Based on this, he was promoted to general. So now Alcibiades is a general.
You can get promoted was he even part of the army?
No. Oh, that's the other thing. Generals are elected. You vote for them in Athens. So okay, popularity makes you a general. That's not military skill.
Well, commander in chief in America.
Exactly.
So
it's like a couple of my classes actually talked about this. It's like it wasn't even a history class; it was a political philosophy class, and he talked about how comfortable we would be with electing generals, and like the general people, we were like, no, that doesn't make sense. You should like pick them based on their like
merit.
So then Alcibiades, he reached out to other city-states that he had been like talking to beforehand. Like he prepped this. Yeah. He talked to them and then was like, secure. He's like, by the way, I just talked to them and they're our ally now. And this other guy, they're also our ally. I'm crazy good at this, guys. So he ensured that these new allies built long walls, which is a thing that Athens had, where basically Athens' port was called the Piraeus, and then Athens city proper was like a little bit away from shore. They built walls connecting the city to the port, so that you had, even if you were under siege, you had access to your port.
Yeah, just had a tube.
Wall. A tube of wall. So he made all of their allies build that, which is like just a good like tactical
to their
not their port, like to their each
city
port.
Oh,
like each of them had a port because most city states were near a shore. So like he just told them, you should all build long walls connecting your city to your port because it's just good advice.
Yeah.
But it also meant that they would then depend on Athens as a naval power because they were now dealing with like boats. Like he encouraged all of them to build up naval powers, but so then now they had to like he didn't tell them to build up naval powers. He was like, we'll protect your ports though. But that means they now depend on Athens to protect their ports. He made the ports way more important for the cities, but he also meant that Athens now they had to depend on Athens to defend them. Smart dude. That's why he's not a himbo. Like he's just like super smart.
He's so smart. He's kind of like he reminds me of what's his name? Kevin Spacey in House of Cards before that show became terrible.
Before it like went off the rails. Yeah. Interestingly enough, it got bad when they introduced birds, and when Alcibiades introduced a bird, his career took off.
For those who did not watch
House of Cards
season 4, there's a season 4 where he goes to a weird bird cult in the middle of a forest. Really weird turn.
It's very
weird. It was about like the political system before that,
and then bird cult,
and then a bird cult.
So people now really liked Alcibiades. They were like, they were frothing.
This is a guy that gets stuff done.
But he was also the dude, like we established, he loved debaucheries and lavishness and stuff. He had a fancy bed where the bedding was on cords, it
was like hanging.
So he had like a net of cord underneath his like mattress, right? Which is like
just like sheets.
Which is but like so that was like unheard of. It's like whoa, some new tech bed.
Yeah. It's like when you're a kid, like when you're like 8 years old and you went to like a motel, like in the Goofy movie, and there's like a water bed. You're like, damn, it's a water bed.
Yeah. He also removed the decks of his ships to sleep better.
What?
I don't know. I didn't get it.
Isn't the deck of a ship the top part where you stand on?
I think he might have removed I think the idea is that the lower decks were kind of cramped. Mm-hmm. So he's just like, I'm just gonna take off like one of these layers of decks so I have a taller room.
He made a little sunroof.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So he can sleep under the stars. He also made himself a golden shield emblazoned with Eros, armed with a thunderbolt. Eros is like the god of like lust and like love.
That is so extra.
Yeah, right? But because of his good looks, his speaking skills, and now his like military negotiating expertise, Athens would find a way to forgive him for anything he could do. Mm-hmm. Like it did not matter. Mm-hmm. Like I said, the whole city were simps for him.
It's a whole House of Cards, dude.
So some of his like goofy goofs that he did in this time were like some of his goofy goofs that he did that people forgave him for. Mm-hmm. He imprisoned an artist until he had decorated his whole house with paintings. He beat up a dude who was presenting a chorus in competition with his own. So he had a chorus, and then there's another dude with a chorus. He beat up that dude.
Wait, so this guy was just singing in the street, and then someone...
No, it's like he kind of entered a chorus. It's like with the horses. He owned a bunch of people who sang, and so then...
Oh.
Yeah.
You know what I thought this was going to be like?
Yeah, what?
When you mentioned this, you know how like you see videos on YouTube of like some busker like playing an instrument on the subway, and then someone joins in, and they're like jamming. It's like really cool.
Yeah. And someone walks up and punches.
like the first dude's like doing saxophone, another guy comes up, he's like jamming along. He's like, no, this is my
limelight.
This is my area.
Yeah. So the another thing he did is he took a woman from Milos as his mistress and raised their child, which people were like, oh, that's so nice.
Who's Milos?
So Milos was a city-state.
Oh.
So then I go into this a little bit, so Milos had revolted against Athenian supremacy, right? They didn't like it. Athens then decided to make an example out of Milos, like to make it so no one else did what they did. Mm-hmm. So they killed every single man in the city and enslaved all the women and children. So what Alcibiades did was like, I'll rescue one of these poor women. Mm-hmm. But he was the general at the time that they did that. So he put out those commands and then was like, I'll save one of these poor women. Mm-hmm. So everyone's like, he's so generous. Oh my God.
He saved that woman
from
himself.
Exactly. He also had a painting of him made. He had a painting made of him being embraced by the personification of the Peloponnese, which is like the peninsula that Athens is on. Basically, just like there was a goddess that like represented that.
This Chad got the whole continent.
Yeah, to just like hug him in a painting. So things were like flying high for Alcibiades, but then we get into something that I called, and I think a lot of people called, the Sicilian disaster. So Athens had wanted Sicily for like a while now. They wanted to conquer Sicily, like the off the boot of Italy, which is like kind of far from Athens, but like they still just wanted it. So Alcibiades like fanned these flames. He was like, we need Sicily, guys. So for Alcibiades, Sicily was more important as like a springboard for further expansion. Like he wanted to get Sicily and then expand into like the Italian peninsula and things like that. So Nicias, as well as Socrates, thought this was like a disaster. It's like, dude, we should not do that. Mm-hmm. But he hated Nicias. I'm surprised he didn't listen to Socrates though. Socrates was like, dude, you should not do this. He was like, don't worry. It's like a top tier plan.
Yeah, trust me.
Yeah, trust me. Look at how good I was before. I'm not going to let you down again. So then some time passed. And so now Nicias, Alcibiades, and the student named Lamachus were elected like generals because it's like a rotating thing. So he got reelected. The public kind of figured that it was good to kind of have Alcibiades up there, but it was also good to have Nicias up there because Alcibiades was like a bit of a hot...
He's a wild card.
He's a wild card. Nicias is like older dude who would like probably temper him a little bit. Mm-hmm. So that was the idea. The size of the expedition to Sicily was debated. Nicias wanted to call the whole thing off. Alcibiades countered this and even ensured that the generals had sole control over the expedition size. So he was like, I control how many people go. So I want to make this as big as... So
it's kind of like when Disney like pays someone, like pays like the Senate to like expand.
Oh yeah, the copyright law. Yeah.
It's just like,
just please. Can I have 1,000 soldiers to go to Sicily, please? Yeah. Keep in mind, like they were still kind of like because of the stuff that he had done earlier, they were not on good terms with Sparta anymore. So there was like conflict ongoing between them and Sparta.
Is Sparta in between?
No, not necessarily, but it's just like they have to deal with the Spartan front.
I can see where this is going.
Yeah. So then they got to send a ton of people to Sicily. So then there were some bad omens, right, that happened before this. So there was a thing called the mutilation of the Hermae or the Herms, where a Herm was a statue of Hermes, right? Like basically a column with like Hermes' head on the top and just a big old penis sticking out of the column because like he was virile and stuff. And yeah.
Like right beneath the head or like
where it would be,
okay.
But he doesn't have a body, just a pillar.
Okay.
And they're like erect, they stick out.
Right.
Yeah, of course. And so these are used to like as boundary markers, like at the edge of your property you put one. So anyway,
when you're giving instructions, take a left at the big penis statue.
Exactly. So all of the penises for like basically all of the Hermae in the entire city were destroyed. They were just lopped off. Like, so imagine like a big erect penis sticking out of a column. You just like smack it, it's gonna fall off with like a hammer, right?
So balls too, or just
the penis?
Just the penis.
So the balls are still there. Okay. So then people wake up in the morning and find the penises are
someone
gone.
Someone broke my penis
broke
statue.
all the penis statues. Yeah. So like people are upset about it. Like in a single night. It was rumored that it was the Corinthians trying to throw off the quest because they were allied with Sicily. But yeah, maybe. But some more like influential rumors began to spread that it was Alcibiades and his cronies. The reason that they kind of like pinned this sacrilege on Alcibiades is because they knew for a fact that he had done this other thing. So the other thing that he did was parodied the mysteries of Eleusis. So that's like a ceremony that happens once a year. It's like a big procession. It basically was a festival introduction into the cult of Demeter and Persephone. It was like this whole like initiation like process. So they like parodied it like in his house once when they were all drunk. They're like, I'll be this god. Like, I'll be this god. And they just like made fun of the whole thing. And so then people found out and Alcibiades was charged with impiety, which is like a big crime. So then when they found out that all the penis statues were lopped off, they were like, I wonder if it was the same guy who was making fun of this other ceremony. But he was still allowed to lead his expedition, mostly because the participants of the expedition fully trusted him and wouldn't allow for a change. So all the soldiers that were going to go to Sicily were like, we're not going to go.
No, I'm not going anywhere but Sicily.
Without Alcibiades as well. They needed him there. So they were like, okay, you can go, but we got our eye on you. So while he was gone, the rumor mill started to really crank up because he wasn't here to defend himself, right? Soon Alcibiades was like, they were like sure that he was him that mutilated the Herms. There was like a witch hunt to accuse, like, it was basically like, one, like the Salem witch trials, and two, like
it's reminds me of like high school. Like someone mentions like someone like starts a rumor that a girl hooked up with a dude and like suddenly she's like a slut. Yeah,
that's what happened.
Yeah.
He was and there was so Athens was like super enraged, so they sent a ship to retrieve Alcibiades to bring him back to face trial. So Alcibiades was like super upset by this. He was like, how dare you do this? And he hid from the ship. Like, he was on an island, they landed on the island, he's like, we need to find you. And he's like, no, and he's hiding in the bushes. No, literally, they called out to him, do you not trust your own country? And he called back, like from the bushes, I guess, nearby. He was like, yes, in other things if you like, but when my life is at stake, I wouldn't trust my own mother not to mistake a black pebble for a white one when she casts her vote. When you vote to like execute someone, white pebble means innocent, black means like guilty.
So did everyone vote?
The whole like assembly voted.
Ooh.
No, they hated him. If he went back, he was gonna die. Yeah. So he hid from them, and then so he was super upset. So he started to then feed the Sicilians information about the Athenian attack, so that they would start losing because he hated Athens. Now he's like, they've betrayed me.
Oh, so he's like, I'm.
So they're at Sicily, and he's like, I'm gonna start sabotaging everything we're doing.
I would imagine his thought would be like, let's win this.
And then take Sicily for myself.
Yeah.
Like, or
just be like, hey guys, I got Sicily. But he's just bitter. He's just mad. He's like, I'm
Yeah. So then the men returned and said Alcibiades wouldn't come. So then now the assembly was like, okay, he's gonna die. Like, we've now sentenced you to death.
You know what it's like?
What?
It's like when you're playing Fall Guys.
Yeah.
You're in position like 39 and and out of 40. And you're just grabbing people.
Right.
You can't
just like,
there.
you can't go. Yeah. It's me.
It's me.
But then often you die too.
Yeah.
We'll see if that allegory plays out. So upon hearing that the assembly had sentenced him to death, he said, I will show them that I am still alive. So then he goes to Sparta. So right now, Alcibiades was in Argos, which is an ally of Athens, so he didn't feel safe. So he reached out to Sparta and was like, hey, can I come and like be safe with you guys? He promised that he would undo all that he had done to them while he was their enemy. So they accepted. So then he goes over to Sparta. So then he began spitting out like so much advice and orders to these people. Like firstly, like Sparta was waffling about sending help to Sicily, right? Like they weren't sure if they should help. Alcibiades was like, send a huge force.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
Was the invading force still going towards Sicily?
They were at Sicily already. Like they were like
they were like at the walls and like trying to.
Yeah, they're fighting.
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
So so they were like, should we send people to help Sicily? I don't know, like Spartan. And so like Alcibiades was like, yeah. I convinced them to send basically their whole army to Sicily. So if you beat them there, they'll be defenseless. Mm-hmm. So they were like, oh, that's a good idea. So they sent like a huge fleet to destroy them. They destroyed them. Mm-hmm. He also told Spartan to like really like zero in on Athens itself, because at the moment Sparta had really been fighting with Athens' allies, which are like further out. So he said you got to target the city itself, because like once you get to the city, they're nothing. Yeah. And finally he said to strengthen Decelea, which is a fortress 15 miles north of Athens, which is able to totally cut off Athens' land resources. Like, there's a fortress along the kind of trade route, so if they took that fortress and strengthened it, they could just stop all resources getting to Athens from the land. So then Athens would have to totally rely on the sea, and if their navy was now destroyed because it was in Sicily, they had no resources, so they would not stand up against a siege.
Wow.
Yeah. So these things got him, like, mad respect from the Spartans. The Spartans were like, this guy is the best. He was also, like, the thing I think...
Did it work?
It totally worked.
Oh, okay.
They were like they had Athens on the ropes now.
Okay.
Like they didn't like destroy it yet. They do that later. Okay. Spoilers. So Alcibiades' like really special talent, I think, was he was really good at like chameleoning, just like blending in with people, right? Mm-hmm. So like when he was in Sparta, he just totally adopted Spartan customs. He stopped cutting his hair, or no, he cut his hair a little bit shorter. It's like how Spartans wear it. Mm-hmm. He ate the coarse bread and broth that they ate because they were like very minimalist. Sparta was, and he started taking cold baths because Sparta just took cold baths because it was like a manly thing to do, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I mean, totally. Like, you know, like bodybuilders take ice baths?
Yeah, that makes sense, I guess. That's just like all of Sparta is just a bunch of bodybuilders. Just a bunch of chads. So he's totally able to adapt his surroundings and then get people to really like him. Mm-hmm. So he was all for this simple life and the physical exercise. He was into it. Then, one day, while King Aegeus was away on his campaigns, Alcibiades starts looking at his wife, Timea, the king's wife, the queen of Sparta. And he puts on the moves and seduces her. They hook up and they have a son.
Oof.
Yeah. So then the son is named Leotychides. That's his name. But in the private, the queen would say that her son's true name was Alcibiades.
Oh my god.
Dude, I know.
Wait, so did the king not know that?
The king didn't know because he like sleeps with his wife all the time, so maybe it was his kid. Mm-hmm. The king finally worked it out. So Alcibiades claimed that he did this so that his descendants would one day rule over Sparta.
Mm-hmm. I think he was just horny.
Yeah, dude, for sure.
Yeah.
The king finally worked it out because there had been an earthquake in Sparta, and the king had ran from his wife's side in terror, and then didn't sleep with her for 10 months because of the earthquake. This is weird. I don't know why. And the son was born after this 10-month period. So he realized, wait a minute.
This guy didn't like realize that like 9 months.
No,
he like 10 years later, he's like, wait a minute.
I didn't sleep with her because of the earthquake.
I thought what you were gonna say, like this whole like him figuring out, was that the earthquake happened, and Alcibiades was like, my son, and he runs over to like.
He's like, what do you mean your son? Nothing. Oh no, that would be so much better. But then he basically established that this son would not be put into succession of like he wouldn't be ever king of Sparta.
And he didn't retaliate against the cuckoldry?
Later.
Okay.
But like this is kind of like a bunch of wheels are spinning at the same time. So while this is all going on, Alcibiades' advice had paid off. So Athens was crippled after the entire Sicilian fleet was destroyed, like their entire fleet that was in Sicily. Then a bunch of other city-states came to Sparta to request assistance in their revolt against Athens, because they didn't really like that Athens was like ruling over them. Because Athens had really gained a lot of power after the Persian War, because like Athens had really done a lot of it, so they made a league and then all this stuff, right? So, but the city-states were like over it. So Alcibiades insisted that Chios, which is a city-state, should be helped first. He sailed there himself and used that momentum to inspire all of the Ionian city-states to revolt. So he went to Ionia, which is like a period, like a region of Greece. It's like on the easternmost part of the Mediterranean. He convinced like all the city-states to rebel against Athens at once because like they couldn't handle it now. They were crippled. They didn't have a fleet. All this stuff, right? They were like he was trying to hit them like from all sides at once. Then while he was away doing that is when the king worked it out that the kid wasn't his. So he then sent word to his allies in Ionia to kill Alcibiades due to like. One, the jealousy because he slept with his wife, but also his success because everyone was saying that like
he's too popular. They like him more than me.
Exactly. They were like, dude, all our victories are because of Alcibiades. This king is useless. Yeah. Alcibiades should be our king.
You know what this reminds me of? I don't know why like the story of David, how he had
the
girls.
slingshot.
No, it's just like sleep. Like he saw some woman bathing on a roof and
Yeah, sure, Bathsheba or whatever.
Wait, no, I'm just completing. Just cut this. This is not a correct metaphor. Just cut this all out.
Okay.
Just never
1, 2, 3, cut here. I'm not editing this at all.
No, man.
Okay. So then, Alcibiades had received word that the Spartans were going to kill him. Right, he found out, and so he looked for another powerful ally.
Oh, does he just go back to Athens?
No, not yet. So where does he? So who are the big players in this world right now? Right, it's like Athens and Sparta, and then who did Athens beat in a war just like 10 years ago?
Persians?
Persia.
Oh.
So Alcibiades decides, let's go hook up with Persia now. So seeking safety, he sought out the Persian king's satrap, which is like a governor, like a Persian governor of an area. This guy's name was Tissaphernes, and once again he adapted to the pomp and circumstance of Persia.
This guy has such a strong resume.
Yeah, he's worked for like 3 different like rulers at this point. He was like the general of Athens, like king's advisor in Sparta, and now like
he
satraps.
could also be like, don't screw me over because look at
I'll just go find someone else.
Look at Athens.
Yeah. Yeah. So he hooks up with them. He adapted to the pomp and circumstance of the Persian politics, right? Because Persian politics was very like treating the king as like a god, kind of, where the Athenians were like, we worship the gods. It's important to appear like pious, but in Persia it was like the king is the god. Like like for instance, Persia, the king of Persia called himself the king of kings. Jesus calls himself that, but that's like from a Persian thing. Like Jesus kind of took that from Persia, or like Jesus's followers, I guess. Jesus didn't call himself the king of kings, but anyway. So he was able to win over all the Persians with his charm and flattery, of course, and his good looks.
Wait, sorry. Could you go into some of the Persian customs that he adapted to?
I didn't write that down.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's fine.
It's more just like the dress, like because they dress really extravagantly, so he dressed a lot differently. And he was just really.
He had those weird curvy swords. You got one of those
for sure, like in Prince of Persia. He raced ostriches, like in Prince. No, that's that's from the movie Prince of Persia.
He bred the greatest and fastest ostriches.
Oh God, I wish. So then, everyone loved him so much. Tissaphernes named the most beautiful park in his area of Persia Alcibiades Park.
Damn.
Yeah, dude. Alcibiades then advised Tissaphernes to neither commit to helping out Athens or Sparta. Basically,
they're gonna destroy each other.
He was like, the two are gonna wear themselves out, and then you swoop in and just conquer all of Greece. Yeah.
Oh my God.
But Athens now started to regret what they had done to Alcibiades. They were like seeing what he had done, and they were like, "Oh,
maybe he didn't.
Maybe he didn't
lop off all those penises."
Yeah. So now the next section that I have right here is like the labyrinthian path to glory, because eventually Alcibiades is gonna like head back to Athens, right? Because they love him so much.
I feel like he's just stick with one, dude.
But the way that he gets there is like wild.
Okay.
So Alcibiades knew that Athens was grouped in a city-state called Samos, right?
Wait, sorry, before you go on.
Yeah.
Did Athens know that Sparta's
knowledge was coming from Alcibiades? Yeah. Yes.
Oh.
So I think part of it was probably like, man, we should get him back on our side because
he's too good.
He's like single-handedly winning the war for them. So he knew that the entire group was grouped in, like the military of Athens was grouped in Samos, or Samos. He also knew that if he told Tissaphernes to attack, Persia would like wipe the floor with them, right? So if he was like, you should attack, they would win. So he knew all this. So he sent a letter to Samos saying, I might be able to sway Tissaphernes to Athens' side. I'm doing this not for the common folk, but for the aristocrats of Athens, because together, we elite can save Athens. So the people who got this letter were aristocrats and stuff, because they're the ones leading the... Because, like, the aristocrats are the ones who get elected general, so they're the ones leading the military. So they get the letter, and they're like, yeah, we should be the saviors of Athens.
Do you think some servant found that letter? Was like, wait a minute.
Like, wait a minute, he's not for us at all.
Wait, so was he still in correspondence with Socrates?
They kind of like Socrates honestly just drops out of like
the story.
I mean, he did.
They just seem real close.
I'm very bad about the years in any of this. I didn't write a lot of the years, which is like, to be fair,
these are boring.
Plutarch's also kind of bad with years, but they're in there. But Socrates did die in the year 399 BC, so he's not dead yet, but he does die then.
Oh,
that's when they execute him. Athens does.
Do you think maybe Athens executes Socrates?
Dude, that's its own episode. We'll get into it.
Okay. Wait, didn't they make him drink poison?
Yeah,
I saw a painting of it.
Mm-hmm.
He's like naked and kind of like flabby, and he's like laying down on a bed. And drinks poison.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing, I didn't even mention this back when I talked about how Socrates and like Alcibiades were lovers. Socrates is like ugly.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's like a lot of people make fun of the fact of how he looks. Like a lot of like plays that were written would like make fun of his big nose.
Oh.
Yeah. So Alcibiades loved him for his mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Makes it even sweeter, right?
That's actually really...
Yeah, isn't it nice?
Yeah, he's
like
not a himbo.
the one suitor that he cared about was the one who was like not hot.
Yeah.
Like all the hotties, he was like, I'm gonna steal your plates. Oh man. Anyway, so
is that the story that you wrote down in pen?
That's the one I wrote down in pen. The plate. It's good, right? I know. I read it. I was like, why did I not write this down? Anyway, so everyone was on board for like this plan of like Alcibiades like getting Tissaphernes on Athens' side, and the aristocrats will be the saviors of Athens. Everyone was on board except for this dude named Phrynichius, who thought correctly that Alcibiades was just trying to garner support and make his way home to Athens. Like if he had the support of the aristocrats, no one would kill him because the aristocrats are the ones in the assembly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no one agreed with this dude and Phrynichius. And now he was seen as shifty. They were like, dude, why are you suspicious of Alcibiades?
Why are you not trusting Alcibiades?
He's
he only just completely screwed us over.
Exactly. So this dude, Phrynichius, sent word. Okay, this is where it gets complicated. He sent word to Astyochus, a commander in the Peloponnese, warning him that Alcibiades was trying to play both sides.
What is Peloponnese?
It's that like peninsula where Athens is and stuff, right? It's just a big chunk of land in Greece.
Who owns it?
It's like a big island. Like the city states kind of owned the city and like a bit of the land around them. There's a lot of kind of like nature that like wasn't owned by anybody really.
Oh, okay.
But he was a dude stationed out there, so he sent a letter to him saying that Alcibiades was trying to play both sides. Unfortunately, this dude really liked Tissaphernes, the Persian satrap, so he sent word of the word that Phrynichius sent him. So he sent to Alcibiades basically saying, this dude's suspicious of you. He thinks you're playing both sides. So then Alcibiades sent word to Samos to not trust this dude. It's like, he's shifty. You guys already think he's shifty because he doesn't trust me. You should trust that instinct. He's a shifty dude. At the same time, Phrynichius sent word again to the same dude, Astyochus, saying that he would give up the Athenian camp. So he sent word to Astyochus saying, I'm going to betray Athens. Mm-hmm. He also sent a letter to Alcibiades. No, at the same time, he told Athens, we should fortify our fortress. They're going to attack. He knew that Astyochus was going to leak that info that he would betray Athens to Alcibiades, but he wasn't going to betray Athens. He was going to fortify Athens. So then when Alcibiades sent a letter saying, this dude's going to betray you, I have info that this dude's going to betray you, Athens had just been told by him to strengthen their fortifications. Like, he's not going to betray us. He just gave us advice.
Oh, I see.
So this dude,
you were like, I just was not following until
dude, so this dude Phrynichius was actually like big brain. He was like double crossing people all over. So then Astyochus sent word to Alcibiades, but at the same time, Alcibiades sent word to Samos. But everyone believed Phrynichius because, like, why wouldn't they? Because he had just told them, strengthen our stuff. Don't trust Alcibiades. And now Alcibiades was telling them that this dude they trusted was going to betray them. So now they lost faith in Alcibiades. So this dude is pretty...
Wait, they lost faith in Alcibiades?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so lost, dude.
So they believed that Alcibiades was just using his insider knowledge of an attack to warn them. So like they thought Alcibiades was saying, there's going to be an attack. Mm-hmm. Phrynichius is going to betray you. They thought he was saying that because he was going to tell the Persians to just attack. Mm-hmm. So like they didn't trust him because Phrynichius had told them to strengthen Athens, or strengthen Samos.
Oh my God, dude.
Okay. Back up. I'm gonna back up. I'm gonna back up.
I just don't recognize the names because there's so many names that you said that like.
So,
I don't...
Phrynichius.
Okay, can you just give them like Frank?
So Fry.
Okay.
So Fry was like, guys, we should not trust Alcibiades.
All right.
So I'm gonna now send a letter. Mm-hmm. Basically, he sent a letter to this dude, basically saying Alcibiades is gonna play both sides. Mm-hmm. That dude then fed that info to Alcibiades, saying that Fry is suspicious of Alcibiades. Mm-hmm. The guy in the middle, what was his name again? Astyochus? Astrid. So then Alcibiades sends a letter to Athens saying...
Don't say his full name. Al sends a letter
to Samos, where all of Athens is.
Okay.
Fry is trying to trick you, saying that I'm playing both sides, I'm on your side.
Okay.
Now Fry knows that Astrid is a double agent. He knows that whatever he says to Astrid's going to tell Al.
Okay.
So then he sends a letter to Astrid saying, I'm going to betray Athens. So then Astrid sends that letter to Alcibiades saying, Fry's going to betray Athens. Mm-hmm. Al then sends a letter to Athens saying, Fry's going to betray you. But at the same time, before that letter gets there, Fry then goes to Athens and says, we should strengthen our fortress.
I see. Okay.
So then the letter arrives after Fry has like strengthened the fortress.
Yeah, okay.
So then they're like, he's going to betray us.
They're crazy.
Of course he's not. He just strengthened our fortress. it's not like that crazy, but it's
pretty
good, twisty.
It's a pretty good move. Also,
yeah.
I wanted to say this earlier.
Yeah.
Alcibiades playing both sides. This is very much like a sitcom episode where he's got 2 dates to
He's
prom.
struggling. Yeah. Like he goes to the bathroom and like goes out the window to meet up with the other one.
Cuts his hair short.
Oh man. So those in Samos, bolstered by Alcibiades' words of encouragement towards the aristocracy. So they still trusted Fry, but they were also like, Alcibiades has a point about the aristocracy though. Mm-hmm. So they sent.
You don't have to call him Fry anymore. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay,
so they sent this dude Pisander to Athens to attempt to change the government to an oligarchy instead of a democracy, so that the aristocrats had more power.
Oh.
So the bargaining factor was that if they shifted to an oligarchy, then Alcibiades could get Tissaphernes on the side of Athens, because the Persians don't like democracy. Mm-hmm. So if Athens switched to an oligarchy where the aristocrats ruled like in Persia, mm-hmm. Persia would then trust Athens.
Okay.
So that's kind of the bargaining chip. The governmental shift occurred, and now the 400 were in power. The 400 are the 400 most powerful people in Athens now ruled Athens. Suddenly, they stopped announcing the war and ignored Alcibiades. They believed that now Sparta would be more lenient to them.
Sparta? Wait, how did Sparta play into this?
So they're still at war with Sparta.
Oh, okay.
Persia's not currently involved. Alcibiades was just saying that you could get Persia on your side if you negotiate with them.
I think the wars are lasting a lot longer than I think
they are. They are.
Yeah,
That's forever. Also, I didn't mention this. Much later, Phrynichus or Fry was just stabbed in a marketplace. He just died.
By
irrelevant, just some dude.
Okay.
Like a mugger.
Okay.
So they believed that Sparta would be more lenient to them as an oligarchy instead of a democracy. Mm-hmm. The troops at Samos were outraged because the troops are the common people, so they oppose this aristocracy, this oligarchy.
They're the ones that are fighting.
Exactly. So the troops were then we should get Alcibiades back in here and lead us. Because he's one of us. He's a common folk.
Oh my god, is this where they see the letter where he says it's not for the common folk?
No, I wish it was that good of a narrative. They insist that... So they get him back, and he's there in Samos. He's like, guys, I'm back. I know you missed me.
What was his excuse for leaving Persia? I gotta go, dude?
Yeah, just bye.
Okay.
I mean, Persia loved him so much that they were just kind of yeah, okay.
You do what you want.
You'll be back, I'm sure. So the troops they elected him general, and they wanted to sail to Athens immediately to tear down the oligarchy. Alcibiades was like, okay, hold up. Chill for a sec. He realized that if they left Samos, all of Ionia would fall into Spartan hands. Because Spartan was on the edge, and they were they would take all these cities if they left. Plus, then Athens would be fighting Athens, and Athens would crumble. Because they were leading to a civil war, and that'd be bad, because they're fighting another war already, so they'd be destroyed.
Right.
And the whole empire would crumble, because the Athenians still had hegemony over the whole thing.
Was Alcibiades still loyal to Athens?
I think
I feel he has this underlying
he's loyal to I feel he's loyal at whatever time. Right now he's loyal to Athens. Yes, he doesn't want. I think at the same time he doesn't want Athens to fall completely.
Right. Because he's
nostalgic. He's Athenian. Yeah, he wants to go back home. Mm-hmm. So he convinced the troops to be patient. He used his eloquence. Obviously he just convinced them all. He also enlisted this dude named Thrasybulus of Styrius, because there's a different Thrasybulus later, but there's not that one.
That you're going to mention in the same story?
Yes.
In a different episode?
No, same story, different dude.
Okay.
Same name. So this dude, Thrasybulus of Citrius, was known for having the loudest lungs in all of Greece. So he would just so Athens, or Alcibiades would just say his thing, and then Thrasybulus would shout it to the troops so they could hear it.
But doesn't it lose its eloquence?
Probably, when it's being just shouted by some big burly dude. Yeah, probably.
And then he threw a bird in the air.
Whoa, we should follow him. So then he also sailed out and talked to Persia. He was like, don't fight Athens right now, dude. No, it's a bad idea. Even though Persia would crush Athens right now.
It would really help Persia.
Yeah. So he's like, don't do it, dude. So he's being loyal to Athens right now. Mm-hmm. So within months, the 400 were overthrown, by the people in Athens. They were
not even the soldiers.
No,
it just happened independently.
He kept away from Athens. The soldiers revolted.
Is that why that guy got stabbed?
No. Because he's still in Samos. I don't know what happened to him. He just disappears from the story.
All right.
Now Alcibiades supported the democracy, even though he was the one who put the oligarchy in the first place. He was like, guys, I'm one of you common folk. Mm-hmm. I'm coming back to reinstill democracy.
I'm going to drain the swamp.
So Athens was like, please come back to us. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I don't want to show up empty-handed, though. I need to get you a gift. So he set off from Samos and heard that Athens was in combat with Sparta at this certain location that I didn't write down for some reason. Oh, I did. He sailed to Abydos to enter the fray. So that basically Sparta and Persia were in naval combat off the coast of Abydos. So at first, Alcibiades flew the flag of the Peloponnese, which is Sparta is near the Peloponnese, so if it was it would be one of their allies if it's from that zone. So the Athenian like soldiers are like, oh man, God, they got reinforcements. We're already losing. So then the Spartans were like, oh, sick, our reinforcements are coming. We'll just turn our back to them. They're on our side. And Alcibiades, like, he didn't need to do this, but he decided when he was about to enter combat, he like takes down the flag and puts up the Athenian flag, and then he rams into the Spartan force. Like he could have just left the flag up, but he didn't. He switched
more confusion.
He switched the flags. So then he caught the Spartan fleet by surprise. He rammed the Spartan ships that were pursuing the Athenians, causing them to run aground, smashing their hulls like on the nearby island. So he like destroyed a bunch of Spartan ships. So Athens captured 30 different ships from Sparta. This is like a colossal victory. So now Alcibiades wanted to flaunt his glory, but also keep a good relationship with Persia. So,
do you think the common Spartan people were like, man, we should just make him king?
Right? Like if we had kept him around, we would this war would be over. So then he went to Tissaphernes and showed off his like victory laurels. He was like, "Look, I won this battle. I don't know why."
Isn't a laurel like a leaf hat?
Yeah, you just get those if you win a battle.
Oh,
like they give like I think you earn them. Like if you wear them like they're not genuine. It's like a Pokemon card, right? Like you can just fake a Pokemon card, but it's not real.
It's a PSA 10.
Yeah, he wanted to show Tissaphernes his PSA 10 base set Charizard. So he shows up.
We're targeting very niche
I know.
of interest here.
I'm trying to spread it broadly. Soon we're going to talk about like
sports
and like WWE. No, honestly, no. Heracles could just be a WWE wrestler.
I thought you were going to say Harry Potter.
Let's talk about Harry Potter too. That's a big market. So unluckily though, the Spartans had been talking to the Persian king, and they said that Tissaphernes was going soft and was too close to the Athenians. So trying to prove himself that he's like, so the Persian king was like, dude, I think you might be going soft on this dude Alcibiades and the Athenians. So he's like, no, I'm not. So when Alcibiades showed up, he put him in prison. So then about a month later, they don't go into the details. I wish he escaped from prison.
Okay.
So Alcibiades escaped.
I think it's like El Chapo, like where
he dug a tunnel.
All their Simps, the Simps.
Oh,
just,
the Simps just dug a tunnel
for him.
Dude, I hope so. He escaped to an Athenian camp, and there he heard that two great generals, the Spartan Mindarus and the Persian Pharnabazus, were nearby at a place called Sycius. So he wanted to go there and like win another victory for Athens. So he rallied the Athenian troops to the encounter, telling them they would not get paid unless they won every battle. Which that worked for motivation.
I know, right? Like that's crazy.
Rain covered their entry, so as they were entering the fray, there was a bunch of rain, so they didn't see the ships coming. Alcibiades decided that if the Spartans saw the full fleet that he had gathered, they would just run away because they'd be like, "That's too many ships." So he had most of the fleet stationed nearby. So then he had like a small bit, like 3 ships or something came out. So then Sparta was like, "Oh, we can take these 3 ships." So then they sail up to those ships. Then the rest of the ships come around the corner and just destroys the Spartan ships. So most of the fleet, remained hidden.
Small bit of it snapping as they like.
Yeah, they just like slowly like come around. The Spartans engaged. The rest of the fleet came out, smashed them. So then Mindarus, the Spartan general, died, but Pharnabazus escaped. So then Athens had now secured a foothold in the Hellespont, which is another like region in the Mediterranean Sea. So then now they had taken a fortress there because of this battle. So then he goes on a whole campaign, Alcibiades does. So he goes to Slimbria, so basically Athens was besieging the city, and insiders were going to let Athens in like with a signal. They were going to be like, all right, we're going to open the gates at midnight. So they signaled before the army was ready. So like the army was like still putting on their boots and like eating like breakfast or late night snack.
Yeah.
So they put up the signal, and they were like, "Oh God, we can't get in there in time." So then Alcibiades is like, "Well, I'm ready," and he grabbed 30 other dudes, and was like, "Let's go." So he takes 30 dudes, and they just run into the city, and like the 30 of them, they were cornered in an alleyway. And so then he sounded a call for silence, so they all just hid in the alleyway. Like him and this 30 dudes just packed into it like an alleyway.
Like they turn a corner, and you see like 30 dudes
like
all
squished in there. Yeah. Soon the rest of the army arrived. And so then allowed like negotiations to turn to the side of the Athenians. Like the rest of the army was in there, so Slimbria was like, okay, we're done. So then another one, Byzantium, was also revolting against Athens. Classic. Once again, Athens was besieging it.
Did they become the Byzantine Empire?
No.
Okay.
Like the Byzantine Empire is just the like Eastern Roman Empire.
There's a lot of names here.
Yeah, I know.
Is it
I know
important
it's
for
a
me
lot
to
of
retain
names.
them?
No.
Okay.
Most of the time, no.
Okay.
If I mention someone else's name again, I will remind you who they were.
Okay, cool.
Most of the time, though, no.
Yeah, just one.
Yeah,
just,
one-offs. He had a lot of one-off relationships with people. I guess the only important one so far is the
dude who he stole plates from.
Yeah, what's his name?
No.
What? No, that was Thrasybulus, I think you're thinking of.
Okay.
Who's the guy with the loud voice.
Oh. There's a lot of TH names here.
Yeah. So anyway, so then Byzantium revolting against Athens. So then Alcibiades let word out that he was leaving. He's like, I'm going to leave, guys. And me and my ships are going to leave. So he publicly left during the day on ships. So like he took his ships and he left. Then at night, he came back. And so had his fleet cause a commotion at the harbor. They were like, wait, who's at the harbor? So then all of the soldiers go to the harbor, and then the rest of the army that was still there just goes and walks into the city and takes it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because they can't leave all at the same time.
Yeah, so like Alcibiades left, and so the city was like, oh man, their general's leaving. They're not going to attack without the general. General then came back, and they just attacked.
Wow, what's the point? That's such a dick move. Like, it's just to flex on them. It's just to, like...
So there was some fighting, but eventually Byzantium surrenders. So finally, Alcibiades is like, I'm done with all these campaigns. I want to go home, dude. I want to go home to Athens. So he arrives back in Athens, and Athens is overjoyed. They are like so excited that he's back.
They completely forgot about the penis statues.
Oh, dude. Like, not a single thought about it. They had new penises. It was fine. No one cared anymore. So the citizens lamented what they had done to him. They were like, we're sorry. They were so sorry. Please forgive us. Surely everything would have been better had they just let you. They were like, we should have just let you finish Sicily. You would have nailed it, and then we would have Sicily.
And then we wouldn't be screwed by Sparta.
Exactly.
It's our fault. Oh my
it's
god.
Our
it's
fault.
Just an abusive relationship.
Yeah,
man.
literally, like he has them by their throat.
Yeah.
Like, so he gave
just gaslighting them.
He gave a rousing speech bemoaning his own misfortunes but praising Athens. He was basically like, all these horrible things that happened to me, they were my fault. You are pure and you've never...
He's actually just like an abuser.
You've never done me wrong, Athens. I love you so much. Yeah. I'm so sorry for these misfortunes that happened to me. He was given a golden crown and given a new title of General of Land and Sea. They loved him.
So he just owns everything?
Yeah, he's like everything now.
Wait, they don't even have air. That's
no.
just all
He realized that some people still had some misgivings about him, though. Like, he didn't win over everybody. So some were concerned about specifically the day that he returned because so it was the ceremony. It was called the Plinteria of Athens. Basically, it was when the statue of Athena was purified. There's in the center of Athens, like we're up in the Acropolis, right? There's a big temple to Athena. And it's gone now, unfortunately. But there used to be a colossal, huge statue made of ivory and gold. Like, of Athena. Huge, crazy statue. And they would purify it. There was also, like...
What does purifying mean?
Just to do some blessings on it and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Like, it was a ceremonial day. It wasn't, like, actually, like, physically doing anything to it. There was also, like... Maybe, actually, they might be talking about, No, it must have been that statue. There was an older statue of Athena made out of wood, which supposedly, because, like, there's a whole fight over, like, who's going to be the patron of Athens between Poseidon and Athena. Poseidon gives them...
Wait, did Athens just make that story?
Yeah, okay. It's kind of like... Two gods wanted to be our patrons. Look how popular we are. Exactly. Yeah. So Poseidon, to win over the people of Athens, gave them a saltwater fountain. And they were like, we don't drink salt water. Athena gave them an olive tree. So we pick Athena. So supposedly the statue of Athena made of wood was from that original olive tree.
Oh, that's
so that's cool. Like the story. So like, when I was in Athens, I went to the temple and they have like supposedly a spot where the saltwater spring was. Like they had like roped off and I was like, oh, that's sick. Obviously, the olive tree's not there anymore. There is a tree. They planted an olive tree there, but it's not the same one.
Okay, so I see that you're getting close to the end of your notes here.
Yeah, it's like...
Can I just like interject? Go
ahead.
Can I say one thing? Either this guy is gonna either this guy is gonna die in in a crazy way because his whole life is crazy.
It's crazy, yeah.
Or he's just gonna have like a heart attack and die and just pass out and like die in the streets.
He's gonna die very unceremoniously.
Yeah, like
right.
he's just gonna have like a brain aneurysm.
We'll see.
Okay.
So he realized that some people still had misgivings because of, like, he arrived. So on the day that the statue was purified, they put a big cloth over it. So the day he arrived, the eyes of Athena were closed to him. Like, people were like, oh no, Athena, like, didn't want to see him return. So people were, like, worried about it. So he realized what he had to do, Alcibiades. He was like, okay, ever since Decelea, that fortress 15 miles away from Athens that the Spartans fortified upon his advice to do so, Athens was unable to do a bunch of ceremonies because they couldn't go into the nature and like do a procession, right?
Wait, hold on. So was this the fort that blocks off their supplies? Okay, so it's
Same.
not the fort that like had a hole in it.
No. It's the fort that he told Sparta, you should strengthen this fort to block off the supplies to Athens.
Okay.
So because of his own thing, Athens couldn't do a bunch of ceremonies. One of which they couldn't do, the path to Eleusis was blocked. Do you remember which ceremony he parodied back in the very beginning?
Oh,
it was this ceremony.
My God.
So he was like, I have an idea. So the ceremony had been altered while he was gone, right? So they had to do it by sea and all this stuff. So it wasn't like the like over-the-top ceremony they used to do. Mm-hmm. So he was like, I have to restore this ceremony that I originally parodied.
You know what that's like?
What?
It's like when you go to a modern Christian church, and instead of it's like the Catholics, they like drink from the goblet and the wine or whatever.
Yeah.
And in like Christian churches, they give you a little plastic cup.
The little plastic cup,
juice in them.
The little like Jesus Lunchables.
Jesusables. Yeah, like it's like
no, dude, the Unchristables. That's right. So yeah, he had to like reestablish this ceremony. So he sent out like a bunch of guards and heralds and stuff to like guard the procession as it went by the fortress. Mm-hmm. He had so many soldiers and stuff stationed that the fortress was like, we're not gonna mess with that. We're gonna let him pass. So the whole ordeal was so imposing and devout that the enemy did not dare attack, and everyone loved this. Mm-hmm. They were like, oh my god. The common folk especially loved it, and they wanted so much that they wanted Alcibiades to become the sole ruler of Athens forever. They were like, please rule us until you die. Yeah, so it was successful. It's a good idea.
Yeah, a really good idea.
So now,
I never knew how pious
Yeah, like religion was like for kind of modern day people who are religious, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of I mean, not everybody's like this, but it's like you have parts of your life where you are religious and parts where you like aren't. Mm-hmm. Like you go to church on Sundays, right? Mm-hmm. Imagine like if that same level of like churchness mm-hmm. was your whole life. Like you were constantly pious. You were constantly offering up everything you did for the gods. Mm-hmm. Everything you did could have been analyzed as impious or pious. It was part of your daily life.
I can see why they got so mad about those penis statues.
Yeah.
And the faking.
The faking of the thing was what they connected him the penis mm-hmm. statues. There is actually no evidence necessarily that he was the one who did the penis statue thing.
Do you think on his deathbed, like it was me?
I took down the penises. No. It's like spoilers for Game of Thrones season whatever.
I want. Tell Cersei I did it.
Tell Athens it was me. Oh. So now the problem was, though, that Alcibiades was too successful. Mm-hmm. So whenever he did fail, right, he went out to conquer a city and he couldn't do it. People were like, you just didn't try hard enough. Because if you tried, you'd do it.
You're so skilled. You just didn't put in the effort.
Exactly. So now they think...
like when I got a B in high school and my mom was like, you just didn't try hard enough.
You just didn't try hard enough, dude. You have the potential.
You have the potential. You're so smart.
So that's what they thought. That's what Alcibiades basically was. He was a dude who peaked in high school or whatever. And now he's just like...
oh my God.
He's trying to continue his like exploits and they're just like, it's not like it used to be.
Yeah, it's just not like... Yeah.
So now whenever people failed, they were like, you didn't want to do it. So people expected him to do stuff like recapture all of Ionia. Like that entire area. It's like, get it back, dude.
He just raised their expectations way too high.
He did. And they didn't kind of realize that one of the biggest problems that he had was money. Mm-hmm. Because now Sparta was kind of partnered with Persia. Mm-hmm. And the Persians are one of the things that's like really kind of like one of like the main things about Persia is that they are loaded. Mm-hmm. Like so much money and gold and all this extravagance. Why? Because it's a huge like kingdom. Mm-hmm. And so they just like...
Do they have like mines?
They have mines. They had all sorts of other stuff. They also get a lot of gold from like other areas. They just like conquered a bunch and they're like super strong. So they are like loaded. So like they basically have an endless supply of money. So now Sparta has an endless supply of money and Athens does not. The biggest problem was money, right? Because Athens now does not have endless funds, but like Persia does. And so then Sparta does. So Athens started to notice these kinds of shortcomings, and these were bolstered on by the other dude named Thrasybulus, not the guy who shouts loud.
Okay.
Not that guy, just a different guy. Who was like talking to Athens to be like, Alcibiades puts his friends in charge. He puts like unqualified people in positions of power. All Alcibiades wanted to do was engage in orgies while he campaigned for funds, and which probably accurate. And his stronghold in Thrace was for him to escape to. So he had like a summer home in Thrace, like it was another region. So Thrasybulus was like, this dude is not what we think he is. He's not for us anymore. So Alcibiades heard these rumblings, and what did he do? He just took off. He just went to Thrace.
He just dipped?
Why
didn't he go back to like Sparta or Persia?
He just went to Thrace and then chilled out for a couple years. He like conquered a section of Thrace, and he's like, this is mine now. I'm just going to chill.
Oh. Yeah. Didn't he have a summer home there? He needed to conquer it too?
He just conquered like a bigger area. He wanted a little more land.
Okay.
So then 2 years later, the new generals of Athens were absolutely beefing it. They were like not doing well at all.
Oh my God. This is his cycle. He like raises up everyone's expectations. And then they get disappointed in him, so he leaves.
And then he just swoops back in.
Yeah, and then once everyone has to... It's... Oh my God. Wait. Not political podcast, but it's kind of like how Republicans like raise the economy. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, look, we're doing so good, but it's not sustainable.
Right.
And then it crashes, and then everyone's like, look, the Democrats are messing up the economy.
Right. Like, they make it so that the next cycle is when it crashes, and then it's like, oh, man.
Maybe cut that bit out.
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't really want to...
All right.
People who are interested... I'm pretty sure there's the large overlap of people who are interested in classical Greek history and like.
And Republicans.
Yeah.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Cut here. Not gonna happen.
All right. Oh my God.
We'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
So the combat at this time was at this place called Agospotami. Agospotami.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it was. I didn't need to write these names down, but I think they're fun.
Mm-hmm.
So each day, Athens and Sparta would engage in combat, but in the afternoon, the ships would return to shore. So they like fought for a bit, then left. So Spartans were rigid and disciplined, where the Athenians were super laid back. The generals were not enforcing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they went back in the afternoon, they just kind of like hang out, like
siesta.
Yeah. Soldiers could even wander off and like just go hang out in like nearby towns. There was not even a lookout to see if like Sparta was going to come attack. They just like didn't care. They're like, we'll fight tomorrow again. That's fine. Yeah. So Alcibiades was like kind of nearby and like could not bear to watch this. He was like, guys, what are you doing? So he reaches out to the generals and he's like, dude, just put out a lookout at least. And they're like, your days are over. You're like, there are new
old news.
Yeah. There are new men.
You're old as dirt
in command now. But lo and behold, Alcibiades was right. Soon Lysander, the Spartan general, launched a surprise attack by sea. 8 Athenian ships escaped, and 200 were taken. So this was like one of the biggest losses that Athens had ever seen. And all the troops that were captured were executed.
Oh.
So within a year from this date, Lysander would capture Athens, burn her fleet, and tear down the long walls. And that would be in 404 BC. I did put a year.
So that was the fall of Athens? Or not a fall, but like...
Yes. It was basically the fall of... The Athens that we think of fell in like 404 BC.
All because of this dude? Well, it's not
no,
all because of
because
this
they
dude.
ignored this.
Yeah, it's
they ignored this dude.
Well, I feel like...
He was part of it, for sure.
Well, like, well, I guess, like... Because their army was extremely weakened by Persia, and so...
No, it's like, it's hard to single this out to a single person.
Right.
It's more just like...
It's a comical chain of errors.
Yeah. And Alcibiades was now terrified of the Spartans because they had like supremacy, right? And the Spartans still hated him. Like the king of Sparta was still around. Like this is like a single lifetime, right? So the same king.
What about the common people? Were they like
in Sparta? They thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, now they ruled land and sea. So he figured the safest place would be in Persia, far away from Greece, right? So he's like, I need to get out of Greece. I'm gonna go to Persia.
Aren't Persia and
yes. So he wanted to be an advisor to Artaxerxes II, which is the king of Persia. So he tries to go him. So he goes to the satrap, Pharnabazus, who he fought earlier and he escaped, but like that's not necessarily relevant.
Okay.
So that he could arrange passage to see the king. He's like, "Can I go see your king?" Meanwhile, Lysander had installed the 30 tyrants to rule over Athens, which is like he basically just he did like we established earlier, Sparta does not like democracy, so he wanted some oligarchy in charge. So he put 30 dudes in charge of Athens. They wouldn't last, but like he tried. Spartans, they distrusted the democracy and figured this would force Athens to stay in line. Athens held out hope
that Al would come
because Alcibiades was still out there, and he would not stand to see Athens taken over by these tyrants. So Sparta also realized this, and so Lysander was just a general; he wasn't like the king, right? So the king ordered Lysander go and kill Alcibiades, okay, so their hope is gone.
Oh my god!
So now Alcibiades was in a village in Phrygia, which is like in Persia. So Lysander ordered Pharnabazus to kill Alcibiades, and Pharnabazus relayed this order to his brother. His brother then sent men to kill Alcibiades, and they set his house on fire. So the story goes that Alcibiades wrapped himself in clothes and leapt through the blaze. He tore off his burning clothing and fought off all the assailants, but then they went to a nearby hill and threw javelins at him until he died. Some say that this is like another version of it, and this one I kind of like too. Some say this is like a less reputable account, but still, that Alcibiades seduced a daughter of a well-known family in Phrygia, and it was the girl's brothers who came and set his house on fire and killed him with javelins.
I thought that was going to end with like, and he escaped.
No.
No one knows where he is today.
Regardless, he was killed by the javelins. He was killed by the javelins and killed by Sparta in order to make sure that Athens had no hope of ever recovering like they did before.
Damn.
Yeah, right?
So I was wrong. Very, very like climactic and...
Yeah, it was kind of like...
fitting.
The death of Alcibiades was kind of the death of Athens a little bit. Which, again, was probably Plutarch really trying to make this analogy fit, but...
So, like, you mentioned how, like, you got this story from this one book. Is he mentioned anywhere? Because this guy seems like he did a lot.
He's mentioned, like, Thucydides, the guy who catalogs this war, talks about Alcibiades as well. So, like, there's documentation of Alcibiades leading these campaigns, especially a lot of, like, the specific, like, conquering cities and all this stuff. That's well documented because Thucydides, like, really went into the nitty-gritty of, like, the comings and goings of the war. So all the stuff that's, like, outside of the war, which not a lot of it was, right? Most of it was kind of, like, Alcibiades mostly operate in the context of this war between Athens and Sparta. But that other stuff is from other sources, which is like less kind of well documented. Like the war stuff, we pretty much know exactly how the war went down.
Right.
But
like, yeah, no, he's how many troops were sent to this place.
Like a ridiculous amount of a level of like scrutiny on the war itself. But the other stuff is like his dog or whatever. I don't know if it's true, but I like it.
His horses weren't that beautiful, I have to say.
They were like maybe like only kind of fast. So any final thoughts about Alcibiades?
That was a great story.
Yeah, he's the best, dude.
I'm like, I want like, is there just like this whole trove of historical figures that are this interesting that I don't know about?
Dude, like everyone in this book is like this. Like,
well, really?
Not quite. I mean, there's a reason I picked this one to be the first episode.
Yeah.
So that's that wraps up the first episode of the It's a Classic podcast. Thanks everybody for listening, and be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, all those different things. I made those, dude. I'm trying to think. Is there anything else? No, I think that's it. All right, good first saunter into the ancient world.
Outros are just as awkward as intros,
dude. Like the middle bit though is fine, right?
That was fire,
it's just us talking, but then like beginning and
can
end.
We kind of wrap this up? Like, can we have like a poetic like a little quip? Like
about what?
I don't know, something relating like to like Alcibiades, like at the end of so lesson learned, don't.
Oh right, sure, something like that.
Don't break the penis statues. Or
that's what I learned.
No, cut that. No, it was real bad.
The lesson that I learned, and so at the end of the day, I think we all learned something. But for me,
and me,
and Shawn, we learned to not lop penises off of statues.
True.
Okay.